Hello, welcome to the first edition of
Know your enemy!
Today we'll be talking about Aeona, the goddess of nature. We'll look at some of the nature-specific cards that are available, and we'll talk about common things you might see when facing off against a nature player. First, we'll start with relics. There are currently 4 different relics available to a nature player. One of them, the Cryodyne Trident, is not actually available for deck building at the moment, though you can get it with a random nature draw. More commonly, you'll see the Vine Armor and the Staff of Roots. The Vine Armor is an excellent defensive relic. Anytime a creature attacks a god, or the god attacks a god, the Vine Armor will deal 2 damage to the attacker and remove 1 durability. The way to get around this is to either have a bunch of small guys to attack with and remove the durability, or have creatures that have a big punch and you don't mind losing them, because you'll still do the damage even though you get the damage back, or have large creatures where you don't really care too much about taking the 2 damage. More commonly, you'll see a Staff of Roots. This is an extremely popular relic amongst nature players, and for good reason. It is a 2 mana. It does 1 damage with 4 durability. It has Twin Strike, Blitz, and Afterlife summon a 1/1 Walking Plant. The Walking Plant has an afterlife of its own, where it will heal your god for 4 when it dies. So you can see why this is so popular. Not only can you attack with it the turn you summon, you can attack with it twice, potentially killing 2 creatures, and you can potentially heal up the damage you're taking from those creatures with the afterlife you get through the Walking Plant. So whenever you see this played, you can expect nature players to use it often and regularly. They will even attack into large creatures that you might not expect them to, because they know that they'll be getting that 4 health back. So be prepared for that whenever you face a nature player. There's also the Fey Flame Blade. This is not nearly as popular, even though it's very similar. It has 2 mana cost, 1 damage, 4 durability. It also has Twin Strike and Blitz, but its effect is to give a target creature confused, which is not very valuable at the moment. Next, let's take a look at spells. Nature has quite a variety of interesting spells, and especially they have a couple of low-level healing spells, Revivification and Compost Charm, that can heal for quite a bit. I don't see these used as often as I would expect them to be, considering how much they heal for, but it is something to be aware of when playing a nature player, that they may suddenly bust one of these out and heal for 10 or 7. Another thing that nature has going for it is regeneration. There are only 2 creatures, I believe, outside of nature that can regenerate. Nature has regenerating creatures, and it also has a spell, Siren's Blessing, that gives all friendly creatures regeneration +2. Regeneration heals the creature with regeneration for the regen amount at the end of the owning player's turn. It doesn't do it every turn, just at the end of the owning player's turn. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Nature also has a lot of damage spells, though the interesting thing about nature is that most of them are not targeted. You'll see it says do damage to a random enemy creature on almost all of them. And so that is interesting in that the nature player will want to try to have some board control before they use these so that they can sort of semi-target them. But it can also hit hidden creatures and backline creatures that they wouldn't normally be able to hit. So that is something to keep in mind. Nobody is safe against nature. You'll especially see Canopy Barrage is one of the favorites to be used, and the Hunt is the other one. The Hunt is in almost every single nature deck. Aside from that, nature has some other interesting spells. They have Pack Stalk at 1 mana, which lets them refresh 5 mana gems. They have several buff spells in Guerrilla Training, Mark of the Warden, Firewine, Swelling Boon. These are very powerful. If you see a creature get one of these buffs, then you'll probably want to kill it. Exception is Firewine. You can't do much about that. That's often used as a finisher by a nature player or as a way to gain complete board control, because it gives all their creatures strength +2 and overkill until end of turn. Now, overkill is an interesting thing that seems to be mostly targeted towards nature players as well. I'll take a look at that more when we get to the creatures. Another thing to be aware of is Amazons. There are quite a few Amazons in the game. A lot of them are neutral. A good number are nature. But the kicker for the nature player is this card, the Archmonian Onslaught. This gives all friendly Amazons +3/+3 and Twin Strike for 5 mana. If the opposing player has 2 or more Amazons on board and casts this, you will probably be in a world of hurt. So keep that in mind when playing nature players. If you notice that they seem to be playing lots of Amazons, then beware of this card and be sure and try to clear those Amazons off the board as quickly as you can. Now let's cover some of the more common nature creatures you might see. Marsh Walker and Black Jaguar are very popular. They both have Regeneration 1, and they are big bodies for 1 and 2 mana. Also, in almost every nature deck, you will see an Underbrush Borer. This is a big body, 3/3, for only 2 mana, but its special ability is that it gets to attack at the end of the turn it's summoned. It picks a random enemy creature to attack, but it can be any creature. It can attack behind front line, it can attack a back line, it can even attack hidden creatures. This is a very powerful ability, and that's why you'll find it in almost every nature deck. Also, something to be aware of is that nature has lots of draw cards. They have creatures that let them draw more cards or other creatures. They also have spells that allow them to draw cards. There's really not a whole lot you can do about that, aside from if you see a Shrine of Sobek on the board, you probably want to destroy it. Letting your opponent draw cards every turn is a quick way to lose. Jaguar Protector. This is a common Amazon creature that you will see in nature decks, even if they're not playing Amazon-specific decks. It is the first nature-specific front line, and it's a decent-sized body at 3/5. Another common card, especially in Zoo decks, is the Bladefly. For 4 mana, you get 3 creatures on board, 3 2/1s. This can be very strong play, especially if you have something out like the Rebel Quartermaster that gives them +1/+1. Nature does have the biggest single relic removal in the Nefarious Briar. I don't see it played too often, but it is something to be cautious of about putting your special precious relics out there when playing against a nature player. Overgrown Rhino is a common card also. The body size makes up for being confused. Avatar of Nature is legendary, so you don't see it as often, but it summons those 1/1 walking plants that heal you at the end of every of the player's turn. So you probably want to kill the Avatar of Nature as quickly as possible. There's also the big Amazons, such as Myrto's Daughter. Tainted Treant is a strong card for late game nature players. Much like the Shrine of Sobek, you want to remove this as soon as you can. Then there are quite a few overkill creatures. This is kind of the end finishers for nature, and overkill is very powerful. Any extra damage done when it attacks will be distributed randomly amongst your creatures and your god. So that's it for this edition of Know Your Enemy. I hope that this has been useful and will help you be more prepared next time you face a nature player. Thank you.